Good afternoon and welcome to the locker room on a Sunday afternoon. This is our Sunday show now. Apologies, a bit of a disruption there. I had a bit of a problem with my laptop there, but we're back on air. So as I say, this is the locker room Sunday edition, and we will be looking back at all the games from the weekend and keeping you up to date with the games from the weekend as well, and keeping you up to date with Hearts against Dundee United. And I'm delighted to say that this afternoon I am joined by the wonderful David Smith. David, how's it going, son?
Hi, very well, thanks, Graham. Good day yesterday, nice and warm, and then today, nice and warm again. And shout out to Box Aberdeen because they kept me warm this morning doing plenty of boxing. So I shout out to them. But not all well apart from that game, and pleased to be in your company for the next few hours of this indie locker room indie live.
Good stuff. So before we get into the games from today, which was Kilmarnock against Celtic, I'm just going to give you the team news from Tynecastle. So Hearts line up 4-2-3-1. There's one change from the team that played against Hibs last week. And in fact, I can tell you that Hearts have actually just scored very early on against United, and it's the ex-United man, Lawrence Shankland, who has scored that goal after 2 minutes. So on you go.
I just hope it doesn't get embarrassing.
Well, I say this every week. I want Hearts to start well. That's a great start. So Hearts line up Craig Gordon in goal. A back four of Michael Smith, Craig Halkett, Kyle Rowles and Alec Cochrane. In the centre, it's Cammy Devlin and George Grant. In the three, it's Barry Mackay, Liam Boyce and Alan Forrest. And up front, the man that's just scored the goal, Lawrence Shankland. For Dundee United, it is Mark Birighetti in goal. They've got a weird formation here. We're just going to say the players. Charlie McGrew, Glenn Middleton, Ryan Edwards, Liam Smith, Aziz Behic, Ross Graham, Jamie McGrath and Tony Watt, and Ian Harkes and Matthew Anim Kujo are named up front, but I know that's not true because they are not strikers. So I'm going to get into this right now, Dave. I mean, I was going to say before this game, how important do you think it is that United bounce back from Thursday and they've just lost our early goal?
Well, I mean, when you lose a goal that early on in a game, especially after what happened in Thursday night. By the way, if you don't already know, Graham's a Hearts fan. We obviously just showed that there. But when you play that game after a disappointing outcome 3 days beforehand, you always want to go into the game and want to start well, want to be competitive, be in the game, try and get something out of the game, and try and win the game, and try and rectify a wrong. And for Dundee to lose a goal in the first minute is very, very poor to say the least. And it's going to be an interesting next 87 minutes or so.
Well, I think what I see is that they've made 3 changes, United. So Stephen Fletcher drops to the bench along with Craig Sibbald. And one player that I'm delighted misses out is Dylan Levitt because I think he's a very good player. As I mentioned in the team news there, Matthew Kojo comes into centre midfield, Glenn Middleton's on the wing, and Ross Graham returns to defence. But I mean, for Hearts in particular, it's such a massive, massive start to that game. Disappointed last week not to get 3 points, but it's a fantastic start. And Lawrence Shankland returns to haunt his former club.
Yeah, I did wonder why Levitt wasn't playing, but I was reading Alan Temple's Twitter now and saying he's picked up a knock. He picked up a knock on Thursday in Alkmaar, so no, that doesn't help United's cause at all. And obviously Hearts on front, and he turned in from close range. And as Alan went and said on Twitter, a horrific start for Dundee United. And if this ends up being 4 or 5 Hearts, you do wonder as to not as the writing on the wall, but Dundee United fans will have a different mentality and approach to their social media content. That's for sure. I think they'll have a different language barrier.
100%. We will come back to talk about Hearts United very shortly because I think there might be more goals in that game. But I'll just give you a rundown as well of the SWPL games that played this afternoon. It finished Glasgow Women's 0, Dundee United Women 4, Hibernian 4, Hamilton 0, Partick Thistle 0, Celtic 2, Spartans 2, Hearts 1. And at 4 o'clock, it's Aberdeen against Rangers and Motherwell against Glasgow City. So some big scores there as well.
Yeah. Always some intriguing games. Good for Glasgow women to keep it down to an extent because obviously that was a sore one. Get beat 14-0 for Rangers last week, but that's a good win for Graham Hearts today with a 4-0 Glasgow women. Full start by all accounts. They took the lead through Cassie Cowper. I'm delighted to see Cassie score because I went with Cassie at for Farmington. So delighted, and Aberdeen of course. But and then Dundee turned the right act on in the second half and a good pot of 3 points for Graham Hearts side. So that was a good win for them over Hearts. Hearts were very impressive against Partick last week. But Spartans, I think they've written it wrong because they were disappointed against Glasgow City, but took a few points out for David McCulloch's side, and Celtic beat Partick 2-0. And I think Brian Graham's Partick whistle deserves a lot of credit because obviously Celtic were rampant against Hibs last Sunday. And for Celtic to go to Partick and only win by 2-0, still a good 3 points for Fran Woods' side, but still full credit to Brian Graham and his troops for keeping the score low. But yeah, good day in the women's game, and obviously Sugar Bubble against Glasgow City and Aberdeen against Rangers to come. Had it not been on this, sorry, they've been up to Aberdeen against Rangers. But yeah, some pretty intriguing results in the SWPL so far.
Yeah, we'll keep you updated at 4 o'clock with those games that kick off at 4 o'clock. But let's now look back at the game from earlier on this afternoon. Kilmarnock 0, Celtic 5. It's probably no surprise that Celtic won very comfortably. But to be honest, Dave, Celtic look very, very impressive again this afternoon.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it was a professional job from Ange Postecoglou's side, and they got the ball rolling early on. Kyogo Furuhashi with a simple finish to make it 1-0, and then a moment of quality from Jota made it 2-0, 3-0? 2. I wasn't sure what I got mixed up. Yeah, a moment of quality from Jota made it 2-0, and then Celtic just ran right after that. Obviously, the over the head kick from Jens made it 3-0, and I think Jens is a player that will go under the radar for Ange Postecoglou's side this season. Scored at Ross County last Saturday, and he scored today against Kilmarnock, and he's a player that Celtic fans will know about him because obviously he plays in the team and all that kind of stuff. He's not the player that people will expect to be a standout in that Celtic side. He's the player that people will look at and say he's going to be consistent, he's going to be pivotal, he'll score goals. But he's made a fantastic contribution to that Celtic side since joining the club. I mean, he was fantastic in terms of that goal at County. He basically saved the game for Celtic. He basically got them all 3 points up in Dingwall last Saturday, and then obviously helped them to win today. I was a little bit disappointed with the Kilmarnock goalkeeping, in all fairness. I made the point to use in the group chat about that. I think if Walker in the Kilmarnock goal is a little bit backwards and to his left, I don't think Jota's shots go in all fairness. Just because if you look at the shot game, Jota does put a lot of power into the shot, and it's a very, very good strike with Jota nonetheless. But from Walker's point of view, it is powerful, but if he positions himself right, I don't think that's going in. So maybe a little bit of a concern from a Kilmarnock point of view for that. And then the third goal through Jens, I thought the goalkeeper could have done a bit more. He was basically diving as soon as the shot got hit, and an overhead kick. It was a good hit by Jens, but I felt the goalkeeper didn't have his part to play there. Celtic just kept on going in the second half. We got 2 extra goals to seal off a comfortable 5-0 win. And yeah, it's a statement of intent, and also it's a professional performance. So well done, Ange Postecoglou and Celtic for getting the job done.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Derek McInnes's quotes here after the game. He said, "We talked about the importance of the start of the game. I do think that first goal is self-inflicted. It felt like a gimme and it lifts them. You don't need to give them any encouragement to play their football. Celtic controlled the game as we expected, but when the ball arrived in our box, it was nothing to do with the level of player. It was a type of goal we shouldn't be losing, and 3 or 4 of the goals are avoidable. We're not ready to take on Celtic yet, but we are better than what we showed today, certainly with the defending. We've got to make sure there's no hangover from this, but we need to improve quickly in terms of showing more resolve, more resilience, more willingness to keep the ball out of our net, particularly from set plays. It's not good enough." I think McInnes hits the nail on the head there for what he says there.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty honest with his outcome and what he said in the interview there, because it'd been easy for Derek McInnes to go paper over the cracks and say we could beat by the better side, Celtic are the side they are, but he's pinpointing what went wrong for Kilmarnock in the game rather than focusing on the opposition. Yeah, Celtic showed their quality, but at the same token as well, Kilmarnock left a lot to be desired in the game, and there's a lot to look out for a Kilmarnock persuasion. I think the season starts 6 weeks to a degree for Kilmarnock because their opening 3 games have been Rangers, Celtic, and Dundee Utd. Now, Dundee Utd maybe are in a bit of a predicament right now, and that predicament's only worsening after Thursday and probably today as well. But when you look at Kilmarnock, they've arguably, and I mean this definitely, excluding Hearts and Aberdeen, arguably had their three toughest games of the season so far in the first opening three games of the season. And when they play Ross County, when they play St Mirren, when they play Motherwell, that's the games where they'll have to go and make a statement, go and get some wins on the board, and that'll give everybody a better barometer. I mean, we've got a good 1-1 draw coming on against Dundee United, and I mean, you did wonder. And then I don't think Kilmarnock's season could be defined on what happened in the last 2 weeks. They were decent against Rangers last Saturday, a Rangers side that had Europe in mind. And then today, a Celtic side were ruthless, relentless, and exposed Kilmarnock at every possible opportunity. But in the same token, as what Depp McChrist is saying there, he is disappointed with some of the goals conceded, and it's a lot. It's back to the training ground basically for Depp McChrist and Kilmarnock.
Obviously, a 5-0 win, a 5-0 defeat, you wouldn't think there's any positives to take for Kilmarnock. Do you think there's anything there that McInnes can think, well, I can try and build on that?
That's a good question. I mean, when you play sides such as Celtic and Rangers and the better sides, it's about being diligent defensively. You're very rarely going to get a chance in the forward area of the park. I mean, there was various conversations happening in our group chat regarding Kyle Lafferty and Alan Power. Now, it's good from a Kilmarnock point of view that Kyle Lafferty's back in action in a Kelly shirt, but you do wonder, does he have his physical side to it? Not that I'm despising it by any stretch of imagination, but I do look at it and say Kyle Lafferty could be a bit more of an influence up front rather than focusing on the dirty side of the game. I mean, the Celtic defence do need a bit of nipping and tucking, but in the same token as well, when you've got a quality striker in Kyle Lafferty, getting in front of defenders, getting in behind defenders, making defenders work, 9 times out of 10 you're going to get your rewards for that. So for me, in the forward areas, there's a lot to be desired. Midfield wise, they looked okay, nothing exciting. Alan Power, as James put it, does go out and get players and aggressively challenge players, but it's a component of the game that's missing now. And for me, they need to use Alan Power in the most roundabout way possible, where they're going to get the best out of, and hopefully Kilmarnock can really get results out of that moving forward. But not a lot of positives, but there's definitely a lot of work to be done as well.
We'll touch on Celtic in a minute, but I actually thought the one kind of bright spot for Kilmarnock was Ryan Alabiasu. I thought he looked quite quick and he looked like he could offer something to Kilmarnock going forward. Today, obviously, was a difficult day against Celtic, but I think in other games he might be a decent player for them going forward, I think.
Yeah, I didn't know much about him, to be honest, but he was positive on the ball. He was always looking to get to good areas and was a constant threat for Kilmarnock. I mean, it was a Kilmarnock side that did very little this afternoon, as we've alluded to, but in terms of this afternoon, obviously there's a lot to build on. And, I mean, I think this afternoon tells us that Kilmarnock still have a lot of work to do as Depp, because as we touched upon there, Kilmarnock are nowhere near the level of Celtic. They won't be. Let's put it out there. I mean, there's a lot of parallels between Depp McChrist's stint at Aberdeen and Depp McChrist's stint at Kilmarnock, and it'll be similar. I don't agree with that, in all honesty. Aberdeen and Kilmarnock are two different clubs within their own right. Aberdeen are a club that are expected to be European football every season, and will have probably the far before highest budget in Scottish football, behind obviously the Glasgow clubs and probably Hearts when you look at it, right? And then Kilmarnock, they've obviously got some good owners there, and Billy Bowie and they've got Raymond Montgomery and all that involved, right? But also they've got a bottom six budget, and they're the type of side that need a good manager involved. I mean, Kilmarnock, I like the approach Kilmarnock have done over the years. They went for Steve Clark. It was a good springboard for him getting the Scotland job. They went for Tommy Knight, didn't materialise in the way Kilmarnock wanted it to, but Tommy Knight's stock was high after what he achieved at St Johnstone. Chris's stock is still high after what he achieved at Aberdeen. And yeah, in terms of McInnes, he'll be looking at this and saying, let's get any success possible. But just remember, if you get the top six with Kilmarnock, you've got every incentive to get European football now. So that's massive for a club like Kilmarnock.
Yeah, touching on Celtic, I said this in the group chat. For me, I think, I'm a Hearts fan, everyone knows that, but I think Jota is probably the best player in the Premiership just now. I think he's a player that really excites you when he goes forward. yes, I think you're right. The keeper probably could do better. It's a really good strike, but I just think watching Jota, he's a very entertaining player, and I think Celtic getting him back permanently was a huge deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jota is probably the best player in the Premiership. Shout out to Independence Live, whoever that is, saying shared. Fair play for that one. But in terms of Jota, he's got terrific tenacity about him. He'll expose, he'll get into good areas, but also it's not just Jota that does all the work. Also, Kyogo plays a massive part. I thought Dyson Maeda had a really, really good game this afternoon for Celtic. But Jota showed his quality, showed how Celtic basically broke the bank in order to get him in. And it's a terrific piece of purchase for Celtic Football Club bringing a player like Jota in. And obviously, he showed his quality. I mean, like James Tavernier has been a success story for Rangers. Don Lundstrom's been really, really strong. But arguably, Celtic and Rangers have made a lot of fantastic signings in order to push themselves above the rest. And from Jota's point of view, he's not been brought in, I don't think, just for Scottish football. I think he's also been brought in for Champions League football as well. If Celtic had no aspirations whatsoever of Champions League football, I don't think Celtic are even touching him with a barge pole. I think it's because more they're playing for Champions League, because Celtic in the Champions League, Europa League, recently in particular, has been nothing short of embarrassing. Group stage, poor. Europa League, poor. And yeah, there needs a lot of improvements from that point of view. Jota's going to be a big, big player for Ange Postecoglou. When you look at Jota, he's done it for the last year or so, sorry, where he's getting into good areas. He's getting good assistance. He's getting good crosses. And the thing with Jota is, it's like having two players against one, where you've got one defender and you don't know what you're doing. It's like a 1v1 battle could be anything, right? But with Jota, it feels like you've got two players on you. It feels like you have it to mark an extra player. And obviously, with the quality of Celtic, it's always going to shine through with Maeda, Kyogo, and others getting goals on a constant basis just because of the quality of what Celtic possess.
Celtic have played 3 games now. They've scored 10 goals. Obviously, they beat Aberdeen 2-0 first game of the season. They won 3-1 against Ross County last week. They now scored 5 today. Obviously, it's difficult to answer this at the moment because it's only 3 games in, but do you think anybody is capable of stopping Celtic just now? Because they look very impressive going forward.
Well, I was asked. Well, I wasn't asked this question, but we were making a similar point in another group chat before I came on. And if there's anybody that's going to stop Hearts right now, it's probably Hearts. They didn't mean that in a pardon the pun type of way either, just to clarify. But yeah, when you look at Hearts, I think they would have been the only side that would be capable of stopping a side like Celtic. Dundee Utd play Celtic in a fortnight. I'll be intrigued. I want to see the least, especially at Tannadice. But Dundee Utd are in a very severe position right now. Hearts, they'll look at this by saying that they can tackle the Old Firm. Joe Savage has also got that ambition. But when you look at Celtic, they've shown their quality and they've shown their mentality as well. And that's the big thing as far as Celtic are concerned. I mean, they're always going to be a danger, and they are probably the best team in Scotland right now. It's hard to. I love to see how Rangers respond. I think Celtic against Rangers when it comes up in a few weeks' time, I think it is. I think that's a good barometer to see where both teams are at this precise moment in time. Sorry, but yeah, in terms of Celtic, they are showing a lot of their qualities, and they've strengthened in the right areas as well. They've kept a good nucleus and cohesion of a team, but they've strengthened in the correct areas, and that's an important aspect for Celtic.
It's a good point. And I think as well, you talk about recruitment, and I think Maurice Jens looks like he's settled in very well, and he's now got 2 goals in his last 2 games. He looks a very solid signing for Celtic.
Yeah, well, as I said, he basically killed the game off for Celtic last Saturday at Dingwall. And then obviously a really audacious overhead kick today against Kilmarnock. For Maurice Jens, his primary objective will be his defensive work for Celtic. But popping up a goal occasionally will do his confidence the world of good, and will gain more respectability among the Celtic supporter may add as well, because you look at Celtic defensively, they do want defensive balance, they do want defensive organisation, but they also want defenders that score goals as well. If you look at players such as Jules Vergaeren, Johan Mjalby, or Bobaldi, who else? Luvens. Luvens. You look at Ayer. Ayer wasn't everybody's cup of tea with Celtic, but he scored goals. And that was a component that a lot of Celtic fans were pleased about. So for me, Morris Jensen's getting everything right at both ends of the park just now. He's scoring goals. Also, he's been very diligent and very tight. And the likes of your Lafferty's today, your Jordan White's last week, your Miovski a fortnight ago, they're not getting much work when they're playing sides such as Celtic. And for me, Ange Postecoglou deserves a lot of credit in that regard. Ange Postecoglou's Celtic weren't exactly a side that everybody tipped to go win the league. It'd been a mixed approach. And Ange Postecoglou's Celtic to a degree went under the radar. So did Maurice Jens. And you can tell why good an acquisition Maurice Jens is, just based on that performance today and also last week at Ross County.
21 minutes gone at Tynecastle. It's still Hearts 1 at Dundee United 0. Lawrence Shanklin's goal, the difference so far. Just going back to Celtic as well, I think there's still just over 2 weeks left of the transfer window. Now, I know that Reagan spoke about this as well, that he thinks Celtic might add another striker. You've also, when you've got Maeda, you've got Kyogo, you've got Giakoumakis, who obviously comes on and scores that goal. Do you think there's other areas of the pitch that maybe they would look to strengthen before the window closes?
Maybe a fullback, perhaps. I don't know the whole situation on the right backs, to be honest, but I think just for competition more than anything else, obviously, I doubt Ange Postecoglou just taking a young player. I think Ange Postecoglou needs a fullback which can play either side, just to add competition in that part of the field. Obviously, Greg Taylor's been a really, really good left back for Celtic. Ralston, diligent, always does his best in a Celtic jersey as well. But yeah, apart from that, I think the Celtic side is complete. And for me, if I was in Ange Postecoglou's shoes, although I don't have as much of a clue as football as Ange Postecoglou, I would definitely get a full back in.
I know we spoke about this last week, but I know that Ange Postecoglou mentioned it earlier. He's not a massive fan of the plastic pitches. None of us are in the Premier League. Celtic, I know, strolled the game today, but again, you watch that game on Sky TV. You've got folk outside maybe watching that game. It's not a great look seeing that plastic pitch, is it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I can understand why the likes of your Kilmarnocks and your Livingston's go on and get the plastic pitches, because it's obviously good for the community and all that kind of stuff. But in the same token as well, these pitches are predominantly only getting used at night times, and that's maybe for like the local kids teams to be training, or indeed their club youth academies to be training it. So it is a money saver for these clubs. But in the same token as well, it deteriorates the playing quality on the park. When you look at games on grass, I mean, we've seen some terrific games over the weekend. Aberdeen 2 Motherwell 3 yesterday. Motherwell Ross County now, maybe only one goal on it, but a KJ affair between both sides. You also had Rangers 4, St Johnstone 0. Yeah, looks one-sided in paper, but St Johnstone were a little bit disappointed with how the game unfolded from their own point of view. So yeah, it shows that these games on grass can be popular. I mean, I cover Arbroath a lot, and Gayfield Park is like a bowling green. It's absolutely fantastic. It's I've forgotten the word now, but it's illustrious. It's absolutely fantastic, and the ground staff at Gayfield deserve a lot of credit. But back at your original point, games in these plastic pitches, it's not good for rehabilitation and recovery procedures either for these players, because I guarantee you Kilmarnock will be used to it, but Celtic, I guarantee you they're all going to ice baths after the game right now. I bet you they'll all get back to Glasgow straight in ice baths and all, and these massage things you get in your legs. That's how renowned I am in the gym nowadays, I may add. But there we go. Yeah, they'll all be doing as much recovery as possible now, and they'll be doing a lot more recovery Celtic compared to what they all have done, had it been at Celtic Park or Tannadice or Pittodrie or Easter Road. Yeah, it's not a good look for Scottish football. I mean, we actually enjoyed the product last year, in all fairness, in the Premiership, because last season there was only Livingston that had a plastic pitch. And Livingston was always going to be a fortress at the Tony Macaroni Arena for opposition teams. But it was the quality of football that showed through last season, and it was probably one of the best seasons we've had in a long time in terms of quality. And you get that distinct feeling that this season it won't carry the same quality, and we'll be looking at other alternatives in order for us to get our to justify our £25 to £30 or whatever we pay, and that's excluding a state player may add.
I mentioned this in the group chat earlier, but that's now 3 games played, and only Celtic and Rangers have got full points. Nobody else has got full points yet. It worries me slightly, as I said in the group chat, that Celtic and Rangers are again going to be about 20, 25 points ahead of everyone else. Is that a concern for you?
It is to a degree, but on a European pedigree more than anything else, because obviously Celtic and Rangers will be flying, and Hearts, Celtic Rangers and Hearts will be flying the flag in terms of the coefficient for Scotland this year. I mean, from a Hearts point of view, I think Hearts are probably the best of the rest at this precise moment in time. Not because Hearts are a tiki-taka or they're a front foot playing side or a positive side. They're a side that show every aspect of their game in order to get a result on a Saturday or indeed today, a Sunday. They're a side that will be diligent at the back, organised at the back. They've got a great goalkeeper, Craig Gordon. Midfield-wise, they've got arguably some of the best midfielders in the league in Birmingham and Cammy Devlin. Up front, a lot to be desired, as you touched on Friday, Graham, but they've got Shanklin, who's, when you look at it, has started well in the Hearts jersey. A goal last Sunday and then a goal today. And obviously, there's a long, long way to go in this game. But yeah, in terms of Celtic and Rangers, I still think they'll be a cut above the rest. I mean, Aberdeen went to Parkhead a fortnight ago and didn't really wear a glove on them. There was the occasional moment, but that's always going to happen in a football game. And it was never going to be it was always going to be a hard afternoon for Jim Goodwin's side. And I think that's shown. And then you've seen it. Kilmarnock went to Ibrox, played a half star-studding Rangers side, got beat 2-0. Joyce went to Ibrox yesterday, 4-0. Celtic are going to Ross County, Kilmarnock. Ross County gave them a good fight, don't get me wrong. Celtic went to Ayrshire today, won 5-0 comfortably. It shows that there is a difference, but I think it's more to do with resources, finance, and where both teams are at in terms of what they're doing on and off the park at the moment.
100%. Gordon McIntosh says, "Hi guys, how do you think this week's Scottish Euro clashes will go?" Gordon, we will get to that later. Don't you worry about that, my man. So keep listening because we will tell you about that. And I'm going to predict Hearts nil. No, I'm going to predict Zurich to get beat by Hearts. Of course I am. But we'll talk about that later. So let's talk about the games from yesterday. And let's start for me with the game that probably the best game of the day and the most surprising result of the day, I think. It was at Pittodrie. Stephen Hamill, now in permanent charge of Motherwell, and his Motherwell team went to Pittodrie and won by 3-2. Dave, I think that might have been a bit of a coupon buster because I certainly didn't expect that.
Not a lot of people did know, but I think it's a sign yesterday where Stephen Hamill's Motherwell's going to go. They're not going to be the Graham Alexander mentality. I don't think it'll be the Stephen Robinson mentality either. I know it's one weekend. Well, not even that, Graham. We're 48 to 72 hours permanently. And I know Hamill have done some work in the training ground with the players, but that was a very, very good one. But I must say, from the corresponding aspect, which I'll get on to in a minute, Jim Goodwin pulled no punches, and I appreciate Jim Goodwin for not pulling any punches in that regard. But Monroe, Van Veen, he's like Fred Van Nistelrooy when he plays Aberdeen. He's here, there, and everywhere. He'll get into good areas, and obviously being a striker that Van Nistelrooy was. But yeah, in terms of Aberdeen, I thought they were abysmal defensively yesterday. I was speaking to there's a journalist that goes to my boxing on a Sunday, Frank Golfever, and I was speaking to him because he writes for the Herald, and I was speaking to him about the game yesterday. He was telling me that Aberdeen were all over the place defensively yesterday. For me, it's a bit of a worry. It's a bit of a worry from an Aberdeen point of view because Aberdeen have started very, very well. But Frank made a very, very good point to me today about Aberdeen. They've only won 3 games at home since Goodwin's took over, which I found very intriguing indeed. But as for Motherwell, I think they've shown the class again. I mean, Alexander, the right mix. Hamill's changed a few things, and it's telling because they've got a very, very decent result at St Mirren. Unlucky to the extent at home to St Johnstone last week, and a late winner for Stevie May. And then yesterday showed their quality to go and turn over Aberdeen. And to a degree, you look at it and say Aberdeen's a bulging team for Motherwell. Obviously, Motherwell's got a really, really good record in the last few years against Aberdeen, and that continued again yesterday. And I think the last time Aberdeen beat Motherwell was, I can't remember. I think it might have been Derek McInnes. I think the last time Aberdeen beat Motherwell was a Derek McInnes. And that would have been, would have been during lockdown. It was a 1 or 2-0 for Aberdeen, but that just goes to show you how good Motherwell have been against Aberdeen the last year. And yeah, in terms of this one, very good 3 points for Motherwell. And you could sense that Motherwell are going in a completely different direction.
Yeah, I thought Motherwell played with a lot of energy yesterday. I mean, I thought Blair Spittle, Kevin Van Veen and Connor Shears were very, very lively. And I think, I said on Friday that I worried for Motherwell, but that performance was so much better than I expected. And to be fair, Stevie Hamill has not had a lot of games in charge. And you're right, he has managed to change things about. But that, to go up to Pittodrie, score 3 goals, if that doesn't give Motherwell a confidence boost, I don't think anything will.
I'm actually trying to think in my head about the last time it went to Pittodrie and scored 3 goals, actually, in all fairness. They'll find somebody, but I can't remember who. But as for Motherwell, yeah, playing with plenty of tenacity, plenty of energy, plenty of enthusiasm, and you can sense that things are going to change under Hamill. I was speaking to Grant Campbell from Ellen last night. He was telling me that Motherwell will look a lot more organised defensively. Obviously, in the forward areas, they're going to be a lot more effective when they play in those parts. And you can sense that Motherwell's going to go in a completely different direction than Hamill. So that's a very good one. That, and I think it's a marker more than anything else. It's good beating St Mirren. It's good beating the teams round about you, or the teams that Motherwell will be expected to be round about. But I think it's cheered up a few Motherwell fans again because they've had a very, very tough start to the season. They've had Sligo, who, well, if you tell Motherwell fans that Sligo, they'll want to just be sick in the basin bin. If you tell them Johnson, exactly the same thing. Yesterday is a big win for Motherwell in so many aspects. And for me, that's an important one. And I'd just like to pay tribute, by the way, because my good pal, Benji Palmer, the Times journalist, is moving on. Yesterday was his last game between Aberdeen and Motherwell. He's away to PR. So more pies, and unfortunately he'll have to pay the extortionate fees that he will have to pay nowadays to go and to watch football.
If you look at the goals Motherwell scored yesterday, they had a lot of numbers in the box, and that's one thing they haven't had previous weeks. And I think Hamill's got to be delighted with that. But I think in terms of Aberdeen, they have had a good start. Premier Sports Cup, they don't lose a goal. Obviously, they won last week. Against Celtic, they had moments in the game, but nothing much. Do you think yesterday is a bit of a kind of kick in the teeth for Jim Goodwin? Because he has a lot of praise so far. And then to lose that game yesterday in the way they did must have been so disappointing for them.
I think it's a bit of a reality check in all fairness. Aberdeen have been renowned for playing some good football pre-season. In the Premier Sports Cup, they were very, very good. Obviously, they weren't exactly hammering teams, but they were comfortable enough in games and obviously showed their quality throughout to get the games and obviously get the wins in the Premier Sports Cup. Now, let's not roll the roost here. Aberdeen are still not a transition, but they've still got a lot of players that have just signed on at the club. Yesterday, I think, is a reality check for Aberdeen, and a lot of people expected Aberdeen to go and win this game no problem yesterday because of a range of permutations involving Motherwell, including Hamill just coming in, and Motherwell being in the precarious position they were in prior to that. So, in terms of Aberdeen, it's a major wake-up call. Majowski, I think, wastes a really good chance in the first half. he lobbed Liam Kelly, but it was very easy to keep your composure, just slot in the net, or the worst case scenario would have been a rebound from Liam Kelly. So I thought it was a bit of a wasteful opportunity, and it's actually been highlighted a lot more from Aberdeen fans than perceived, probably because of the way the outcome, because of the outcome in the game, probably. In all fairness to Aberdeen, obviously, they got the goals through Hayes and let me get the other one here. It was Miovski. Miovski scored the 42nd minute. But what I must say as well, Graham, is I actually forgot about a player Spittle goal too. He told me I thought it was a very well worked move. Colin Shields got a good ball at the box and Spittle tucked the ball away. And that's the thing when you play sides such as Aberdeen. You've got to be in front early doors now at Pittodrie. Under glass, there was that mentality where you could be 1-0 down against Aberdeen, but there would still be a sniff of blood in order to get yourselves back in the game. Now it's different. You need to be consolidated. You need to be in front early doors in this game. You need to take the game to Aberdeen. You need to play high press early doors because that a side like Aberdeen and your efforts will show. Motherwell obviously added to the tally the 52nd, 55th minute through Slattery Van Veen. Slattery is a player that goes under the radar for me. He's a player that doesn't get enough credit as far as I'm concerned. And he's a player that is a lot more diligent in his approach, but he's a player that will get forward. And Sean Goss shows why he's a good player for Motherwell as well with that assist for the goal. So Motherwell can be pleased with every aspect of their performance, but for Goodwin, as I touched upon, he pulled no punches about the outcome of the game, and I think that's a mentality every Aberdeen fan wants to see. And I was speaking to Frank about Jim Goodwin. He was getting booed yesterday, and I was making a point to Frank in exchange. Aberdeen are notorious in terms of when predicaments happen, when things deteriorate. Not that this is deteriorating with Aberdeen or Jim Goodwin by centralisation, but when things take a turn for the worst, it's a very toxic environment to be in. Not in terms of the bubble, in terms of the Aberdeen playing squad, but just in terms of the whole Red Army.
I mean, Aberdeen's equaliser, the first goal, was a great cross from Liam Scales and a great header from Miovski. But I think you talk about the defender, and I actually was on Twitter last night after those games, and I saw an Aberdeen fan. Now, Aberdeen have sent a lot of players, I think they 10, 11 players, and I saw an Aberdeen fan say that Johnny Hayes is still their best player. Would you agree with that?
I did see that actually. I wouldn't. On form, I would agree with it. On current form, I would agree. When you look at the current form, Johnny Hayes has becoming a senior figure for Aberdeen. He's obviously played a pivotal role in the way Jim Goodwin's playing his games in pre-season. That deserves a lot of quality, a lot of credit. But for me, I mean, if you were to ask me who the best player in Aberdeen shirt right now, who on paper, is the best player in Aberdeen shirt, you could argue Ramadani or Miovski. But Miovski, I just think had a bad day at the office. So I can understand why people are saying Johnny Hayes or that fans saying Johnny Hayes, but Ramadani had probably his worst performance in Aberdeen shirt yesterday, even although he's only been in the door for 5 games. Ross McCrory's a big player for Aberdeen. He was napping. So I can understand why that fan's put in the response, but I would say currently, yes, he probably is Aberdeen's best player. But in terms of the whole moving forward, it probably will come down to Miovski, Ramadani, or McCrory because they play a much more pivotal role than Johnny Hayes does.
I wouldn't like to think this. I'm sure it probably wasn't, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Do you think there were some Aberdeen players yesterday that maybe didn't have the right attitude? They thought, oh, it's only Motherwell. They've not had a great start to the season. Hamill's in charge. Do you think they just expected to win that game yesterday?
Well, if they did, I think it's a worry for Jim Goodwin because Jim Goodwin's approached games against Peterhead, the Barton, Raith Rovers, still in Albion, like it's a cup final. He's approached games against lower league opposition in the Premier Sports Cup as if it means the world to Aberdeen Football Club. And what came out of that was the rewards of professional performances and getting jobs done and no goals conceded. Now, yesterday was a bit of a worry in that regard. And I think there's a lot of work for Goodwood to do on the training ground. Now, obviously, It's going to be a hard fixed up for Aberdeen because they go to St Johnstone on Saturday, and then at home to Livingston. That's the Livingston side that are doing very, very well this season. So it's not going to be an easy game for Aberdeen. That against Livingston and then St Johnstone. And I think the next 2 weeks will give us a barometer to reaction because Celtic was to a degree a free hit, even although I don't like using that word. But I think the next 2 weeks, because it's against lesser opposition or similar opposition to Motherwell, I think the next 2 weeks give everybody a good barometer to where Aberdeen's at just now.
Do you think Goodwin will sign anywhere else in this window? I mean, he has signed a lot of players already. Is there anywhere else you think they're maybe lacking a little bit of depth?
It's my understanding he's only after one more. And if you were to ask me who that one more should be and in what position, I would probably say, when you look at it, I would probably say, sort of the second department West Ramirez leaves, probably say an attack midfielder. It's going to be an interesting one, but for me, if you're going to sign an extra player, I think I'd like it to be an attacking midfielder. Also, maybe a centre half, and I'll explain why. I don't think McCrory is shaped up to be a centre. I think McCrory has the capabilities to be a centre half, sorry. But just for clarification, I think McCrory would be better suited in defence midfield with Ramadani. And for me, if you sign a similar calibre of player to Anthony Stewart, I think Aberdeen would be a much better place than they are right now. Obviously, Scales played at left back, yesterday. He's usually at centre half. So that maybe had an effect. And maybe that is the $1 million question here, Graham. Is Ross McCrory capable of playing this Aberdeen side at centre half? There'll be a lot of people after yesterday probably saying no. And if you're Jim Goodwin, you're probably saying a centre half. But to my understanding, if there's going to be any outgoings or incomings, it's predominantly going to be more outgoings. And I think Aberdeen's work is done on the whole in the transfer window.
I'm just having a look at some of the brief kind of highlights of the Hearts game at the moment. United are coming back into the game. Hearts are causing a threat going forward. But John Robertson says on BBC Sports Sound, every time Hearts come over the halfway line, they look dangerous. That's down to Hearts' confidence and United's lack of confidence. United are coming into more, but they have no threat whatsoever. Now, they had a water break, so we're only at about 38 minutes, I think, at the game at the moment. It's still 1-0 to Hearts. I mean, I think if Hearts get the next goal, the game could be finished. If United get it, they're back in the game. So it's still a massive, massive game at the moment. But I think if you go.
Yeah, I think if Hearts get the next goal, it's game over. I mean, Dundee Utd, they'll be seeking a reaction of any magnitude, but I think for Hearts, if they can get the next goal, it's game over. And Hearts are renowned for being a fortress at Tynecastle, and it's up to Robbie Nielsen's side to create that incentive and cut the game off as a contest.
Yeah, 100%. Just go back to Motherwell. I mean, that's a massive win for Stephen Hamill yesterday. They play Livingston at home next week. Do you think Motherwell can now build on that? Livingston had a great win yesterday, but do you think Motherwell can now go and build on that?
100%. I mean, if you're winning a game at Pittodrie a very manner by 3-2, or you're winning a game at Pittodrie by any stretch of manner, it's an important one. And when you look at Motherwell, they've got a favourable, I would say, fixture list coming up. They've got Livingston, they've got Kilmarnock, and then they've got Dundee Utd and Ross County. Being honest, if you had belief in your squad, which Harmer will have, that's a great incentive to get 12 points out of 12, which would set them up massively. They've got Hearts, Celtic, Hibs, and Rangers in there. So it probably is paramount that Motherwell will start picking up points, because Motherwell won't really be expected to pick up points against Hearts or Glasgow too, in all fairness. So, yeah, when you look at this, I think it's paramount that Motherwell start picking up points, and yesterday was a real marker, I felt, for Motherwell, yeah.
You would imagine that Hamill will look to strengthen before the next couple of weeks is finished. How many players, realistically, do you think Motherwell need, and what positions?
Yeah, it's a good question, that one, because Michael McKeon was raising the point in the group chat that he felt Motherwell took in Stevie Hamill to cut costs. He's probably right to an extent, but in the same token as well, Stevie Hamill's a man that's a Motherwell legend. I mean, if Motherwell had two manager applicants for the position that we know of, and that was Hamill and the guy from Finland. The guy from Finland used to play for Motherwell, but you look at the guy from Finland, and there's been an interesting dynamic, and a lot would have been fitted in a short space of time because you've got to remember as well, Motherwell have a last 16 Premier Sports Cup Tigers Inverness coming up as well. So in terms of yesterday, they looks like they're going to play a renowned 4-4-2. I was quite intrigued game to find O'Donnell on the left wing yesterday, well, left back. I found that very intriguing. But I think Motherwell have a good nucleus of a team. For me, if Motherwell are going to sign, it probably will be, as I alluded to, a fullback because O'Donnell, I doubt he'll want to play left back there all season. Ross Tierney, big player. Midfield wise, they're probably sorted. I'd probably say an extra striker and an extra fullback if Motherwell are to be competitive this season.
Yep, I can't disagree with that. Brilliant result for Motherwell yesterday. Disappointed for Aberdeen, but there's a long way to go this season so far. Let's go to Govan, where Rangers ran out comfortable 4-0 winners against St Johnstone. And I think as well in this game, St Johnstone had an early chance through Theo Bair. He's maybe a little bit lucky, but after that, it was procession. Rangers very, very comfortable. And another, you talked about Celtic being professional. It was exactly the same for Rangers at Ibrox.
Possession, just to agree, was 71% Rangers to 29% for St Johnstone. Goal attempts was actually quite funny, but it was 24 for Rangers to St Johnstone's 4, which shows you that St Johnstone very, very little on the ball, very, very little petition for the goal at Ibrox yesterday, and ultimately got away with 4-0 defeat, which was bitterly disappointing for Carl Davidson's side. But Rangers showed a clash yesterday. Tillman opened the score in the first half, and it was good for Rangers to get in front 1-0. And Tillman, I think Tillman's going to be a big player to an extent for Rangers this season. I mean, obviously getting off the mark is a big one as far as Tillman's concerned. But I mean, he's been at Bayern. He's been around. He's played with some world class players in his career, and that getting him that goal yesterday will do him the world of good. And Malik Tillman is probably going to be one to watch. Kovac has made a terrific start to life in Scottish football and scored again yesterday. Good ball by Matondo, and Kovac did what he does, and that's probably the best thing to happen from that Malmo game last year from a Rangers persuasion, just bringing in Kovac. We've all been critical about the fact that Rangers hadn't strengthened in the attacking areas. But I think Kovac just answered that question to a degree. And Kovac offers something different than Morelos doesn't, as far as I'm concerned. I think Morelos is the aggressive one. He's a player that plays for high press. He's the player that offers exploitation upon opportunity. But at the same token as well, Kovac gives you something different. So fair play to Kovac for this never goes to. Arfield made it 3-0. Good for Arfield scoring again. And Arfield's really good in terms of scoring against the more average side. I'm not saying by any stretch of imagination Arfield's an average player. He's really, really good in terms of hitting teams where it matters, making sure he can kill games off. He's very streetwise in that part. So Scott Arfield with the third goal. And then Paul Lawrence killed the game off the contest for Rangers. Obviously, he's a really good start to life at Rangers when you think about it, Graham, because he assisted one and we assisted a goal in those 3 games and scored yesterday. So he's made an instant impact at Ibrox. And irrespective of the fact that you're maybe not scoring goals, as long as you're assisting and playing a pivotal role for that, it's always going to be a good one to have in your laurel. But sorry, just competitive, comfortable, and got the job done. I think the good thing from Van Bronckhorst's point of view is he was pretty comfortable with doors in the game. It gave them the opportunity to go and get spotlight. Morelos, Kamara, Leon King, other youngsters an opportunity to get some game time. And with that in mind, they can turn their attentions to PSV on Tuesday in the Champions League night.
Yeah, I thought Matondo actually did well yesterday. I think it was a second goal for Cholak. He actually wins the ball. It's a great challenge by Matondo, and it sets up Cholak, and then the third goal as well. Matondo, again, really good pace, beats the keeper, squares it back to Arfield. It's a really good finish. I thought Matondo was very impressive yesterday for Rangers.
Yeah, no. If a player provides 2 assists in a game, that tells you how good a game he's had. Matondo, just wait to look at the stats. I mean, that was the second game of the season, and already you can see he's playing a pivotal role in this Rangers side. You can see that he'll get into dangerous areas, he'll exploit defences, and for him to get 2 assists in his second appearance for Rangers is some going, and fair play to Matondo for that. And I mean, he's a player that's got a lot to prove, I think, as far as I'm concerned, because he was at Circle Bruges last season, scored 9 and assisted 2, but he was at Stoke, had a torrential spell at Stoke. Schalke, it didn't materialise in the way he wanted to either. And obviously, he's came through the academy at Manchester City. I like the approach that Rangers have gone with this. They've went down the approach of bringing in players that have been in pro elite youth academies and trying to see if they're capable of working at this specific level. Now, I'm going to argue with you. I don't think Scottish football is on the level of Belgium, the Championship in England, or indeed the Bundesliga. This is an opportunity, I think, for Matondo to go and put himself in the spotlight, be a big player for Rangers, and see what comes after that. See if he's going to be a consistent player for Rangers, see if he's going to be there long term, or see if he can get himself maybe a move into the Premier League where it started again at Manchester City, which would be a full cycle as far as Matondo's concerned. So, but it's an interesting one to keep an eye on, that's for sure.
Yeah, Tom Lawrence added the 4th, and again, I've liked him so far. I think he's had a bit of dynamism at the Rangers team. I think he looks very capable of scoring and creating a goal. I think he looks a very, very good player. But in terms of Rangers, it's a hard question to answer, I know, but do you think they look a better side than last season?
I would say so. Yeah. Obviously, they had the momentum from the European run, tremendous victories in there over Dortmund, Braga, and Leipzig. And it was a pretty impressive run from Rangers getting to the Europa League final. But domestically, it left a lot to be desired. And also, I was a little bit hypercritical to begin with. I think Van Bronckhorst is doing a much better job than what Gerrard's doing at Rangers so far. I had my doubts to start with. See that result to Hibs in the Premier Sports Cup. I don't think the blame should be pinned on Van Bronckhorst because, he just took over at the club. But are you expecting me to think that Van Bronckhorst will get one black mark after one day in the door? It's obviously a setback, but it was never going to be one of those that you look at and say, "Oh, you're pitiful. Get out the door before it gets even worse." Rangers have just grown from strength to strength under Van Bronckhorst, and I like the approaches went under. Gerrard was good in terms of signing British players, which I don't mind because it's quite good in that regard. But you look at the players Rangers have brought in: Kovac, Matondo, Lawrence. Lawrence was from Derby, of course, but Lawrence brings a lot of quality and experience to this Rangers side. McLaughlin, yeah, he's not a huge signing, but he'll come on to a game, I think, under Van Bronckhorst. There's a lot to be proud of, and there's a lot to be thinking about for Rangers moving forward. And if they can get the correct credentials in, I think they can possess a better challenge in the league this time around. And I think last season in the Scottish Cup kind of told you, and sorry to bring it up there, but obviously they turned over Hearts 2-0. And I think the quality showed that day, because obviously the fact that they showed a lot of character that day and a lot of quality to turn over Hearts, despite being in that final against Frankfurt 3 days later, shows where Rangers are going. And I think they're getting even better this time around. I think it's beginning to show. I mean, Rangers don't get that result on Tuesday night, I don't think, against ESG, had it not been for the quality and the fact that they've signed very astute new signings. I think the fact that they've recruited correctly has helped in that part. Because that's the thing, Van Bronckhorst hasn't just taken player X, Y, and Z to fill a team or fill a bench. He's looked for the right quality and it's beginning to tell.
That Rangers Hearts semi-final is a good link to where I'm going next, because one player that did play in that game for Hearts was John Souttar. Now, John Souttar obviously had a massive disappointment at Livingston a couple of weeks ago. Joel Nugley was outstanding against him. Souttar hasn't played since because I think he has been injured. Do you think John Souttar will have to really force his way back into the Rangers side? Because at the moment they're playing Ben Davis and they're playing Connor Wilson at the back. Do you think John Souttar's got a fight on his hands to get into that starting 11?
I think he does. What I would say about John Souttar is things aren't going well for him personally at the moment. Things I'm not going to disclose in here through respect, of course. But Yeah, John Suter is a player with loads of potential at a Rangers jersey. I mean, when you look at that game against Livingston, he was up against a player like Joel Newbley. A Joel Newbley who I would argue would easily get a game for Celtic or Rangers. He's a player that Celtic or Rangers could easily take in. I would go as far as to say Joel Newbley would get a game for Hearts. I don't know if you would agree with that.
I would. 100% he would.
When you look at John Suter, he was up against one of the best strikers in the Premiership. Now, it's going to be a different dynamic altogether when they're up against European strikers, Rangers, because obviously they have the possibility of Champions League football. But when you look at the here and now, I like John Suter to come in for a Rangers game against Johnston or a Hibs or a Ross County, where the danger is high. But I think I know what will happen here, Graham. Rangers have Hibs on Saturday lunchtime, and then they have Ross County Saturday after. Rangers then host Queen of the South in this Premier Sports Cup. I bet I know what happens from here on. I think they'll go with a tried and trusted in the next 4 games against PSV twice respectively, Hibs and Ross County, and then they'll play against Queen of the South, and it'll be up to John Suter to make an impact in that game to ease his way back into Giovanni Broncos' plans. Of course, when he takes that opportunity, he'll need to take it with both hands.
It is half-time at Tynecastle. Hearts lead United by 1-0, and from what I see, Hearts have been the better team and been very wasteful going forward. United still in the game, only 1-0. Anything could happen in the second half, but Hearts have been loading, lead by 1-0. That Lawrence Shankland goal after 42 seconds.
Great start for Hearts. It'd be funny if Hearts score after 42 seconds. That's all the action within the game.
That might be the case, actually. You never know. But in terms of St Johnstone, I mean, listen, nobody expected them to go Ibrox and win that game. They did have that chance early on from Theo Bair. He didn't take it. Might not have been a different game. Might have been. You never know. But I don't think Davidson will be too disappointed. They got that win last week, but they were never really going to take it from Ibrox, were they, realistically?
Yeah, I'm actually just on my phone accidentally, deliberately actually, sorry, because I think it was Alex Mitchell. I'm having a look at Nicholson of the Courier's Twitter, because I did see Alex Mitchell, that was the one, yeah. Positives from a St Johnstone point of view were the performances of Alex Mitchell and Daniel Phillips. Daniel Phillips has just signed at St Johnstone, and you get the feel that he's going to be a big player for Saints already. I think he'll be a good barometer to see where he's at when he plays against like Aberdeen next week, for example, just to see where he's at. But St Johnstone are nowhere near where they were. That's a massive understatement. But in the same token as well, they are improving, and I think Carl Davis is seeing improvement all the time. And let's face it, I think last season, I don't know who told me this. It might have been somebody on the show actually, where Johnson are on a massive high after winning 2 cups, and then it's like you can't control your pressures or your expectations after that. I think the reset button's been pressed for St Johnstone to an extent. Their season was never going to be defined yesterday against Rangers. It'll never be defined against Celtic either. But I think last week showed the type of side St Johnstone are. Let's not forget here, St Johnstone were 2 minutes away from getting a credible draw against Hibs as well. There has been the argument that St Johnstone don't play the best brand of football. I thoroughly acknowledge that. But in the same token as well, if it's going to help them get results and stay well clear of the relegation zone, it's an aspect that should be applauded as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it will sound dull. People won't enjoy it, and I thoroughly acknowledge that again. But I think Carl Davis is trying to add quality in the right areas. Jamie Murphy, he's had an injury-plagued last few years. When you look at Jamie Murphy, he's had an okay pre-season. I think he scored against Elgin. Scored 2 against Elgin, if I'm not mistaken. As I touched upon, Alex Mitchell's done really, really well. Remy Matthews is looking like a really, really good goalkeeper. I've seen a tweet from Eric Nicholson actually that he compares Remy Matthews to Sam Walker if I come out today. Just in terms of he prefers Remy Matthews to Sam Walker and that apostrophe that side. So yeah, there's plenty of positives set forward from a Johnstone point of view. Most notably, Stevie May and other attackers are scoring goals again. I'm a big believer that Michael Halloran should be playing higher up the pack. That's where you get a lot of joy from Matt Halloran. and he's been playing more further forward the last few weeks, and I think they've got a lot more joy out of that. So for St Johnstone, I still think they've got a lot more to come. Sorry, that's a bee in the background there. For St Johnstone, I still think they've got a lot more work to do, but they're going the right tracks now. And the last 3 weeks will serve Carl Davis the world again in terms of what he's looking for and where it can push on from here.
It is very early in the season, we know that, but do you think St Johnstone could be fighting relegation again like they were last season?
It's hard to gauge, to be honest, Graham, because I didn't think Ross County were going to be in a relegation battle. And I was speaking to Grant Campbell, my good mate, after coming back from the Todd race, because he was there. And I was making the point, Grant, that's similar to Ross County result changes my opinion on Ross County, because I thought Ross County were going to be well clear. Now, I'm not 100% convinced. As for St Mirren, it's hard to gauge where they're going to be at. They've been competitive. It's a very welcome win for the Buddies, which we'll get on to later on the show, of course. St Johnstone, it's hard to wonder because they've won at Fair Park, won late. Hibs, as I alluded to, lost a late goal against Hibs. That would have been a very credible draw for St Johnstone. It's going to be an interesting one. I think the next 10 games gives us a better barometer, to be honest.
You spoke about Callum Davidson, we spoke about it before. I mean, it seems daft to say he's under pressure. You know, he won 2 cups a couple of seasons ago. They were in Europe. Yes, they were poor last season, but they had Ali McCann taken off them. They had a few decent players taken off them. They've got Ryan McGowan in now, who's an ex-Hearts player, a very good defender. But they still lack probably about 6 or 7 players. And for me, again, it's up front they lack as well. They don't score enough goals. Stevie May, I do like him. I think Jamie Murphy's a good signing. But they just don't have enough quality up front. And that's something that I think Davidson's got to rectify in this window.
100%. And Jamie Murphy's a striker that is more suited either out wide or he'll be good as a number 10. He's not really a number 9 as such. So, from that point of view, and that's been the outcry for St Johnstone fans for a few years now. They've lacked a number 9. They got a lot of their success a few years ago through Ali McCann, but also the way Ali McCann played and the way David Witherspoon in particular played as well. Now, they're getting the likes of Witherspoon and Murray Davidson and all them back, but there's still a lot more answers as far as St Johnstone are concerned, the final third of the field. I would like to have to come in alongside Liam Gordon as well, I think. I think that'd be good. They've got Andy Constantine, so I think I beg your pardon, but when you look at it, I think St Johnstone are fine defensively. Probably an extra midfielder, a midfielder of creativity. Ali Crawford's not everybody's cup of tea with St Johnstone fans. And I think having somebody for competition could push Ali Crawford on. So for me, a striker and midfielder and the jigsaw will nearly be complete.
I think one of the players that did really well at St Johnstone was Glenn Middleton. How big a blow do you think it was that they couldn't keep him on and he's now gone to Dundee United?
You don't realise how big a player he is for St Johnstone until he's out your team. Glenn Middleton's the player that will show quality when he can. He was fantastic in that first leg against Cali. I thought it was tremendous that night at the Caledonian Stadium. He's shown in big games. He played a pivotal role at Broth, I remember, in a game last season. He was tremendous in a game. I watched St Johnstone, against Ross County, where St Johnstone won 1-0. And he plays a pivotal role. Sometimes he's not lazy, sometimes he'll frustrate St Johnstone fans. Or sometimes he'll frustrate fans in general. And that's probably why he didn't make the breakthrough at Rangers, in all honesty. But he is a player that will get into good areas. He is a player that will find little wee pockets. He is a player that will look to find the back of the net instantly. And he is a massive player for whoever he plays for. Glenn Middleton showed his quality 10 days ago for Dundee Utd against Alkmaar, playing with that goal. Great piece of quality, finding that top corner. And some of it St Johnstone to a degree are missing. But you could argue as well, not having players such as Glenn Middleton is maybe helping St Johnstone become a lot more compact and a lot more tough to beat. And the proof will be in the pudding whether it's a big miss or not.
I can tell you that at the start of the second half, Hearts have now gone 2-0 up against Dundee United. I don't know who scored it, but I'll get that for you very, very shortly. But it is Heart of Midlothian 2, Dundee United 0. Hopefully that'll come up in a minute. Let's move to West Lothian, where Livingston defeated Hibernian by 2-1. This was a game of two halves because Livingston in the first half, and I can tell you the goal scorer for Hearts was Barry Mackay. What a start to the season he's had. Honestly, I think I saw a tweet a couple of days ago that, and I agree with this. I don't know if you will, but I agree with this. I think outside the Old Firm, Barry Mackay is the best player in the league. I just think he's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I would say so. I would also have Dylan Levitt in that bracket as well, arguably. But if you look at players that make an instant impact or players that make an impact game by game, Barry Mackay is certainly up there. He's that player that will get into dangerous positions, and Hearts is the right fit for him. I think Hearts is the right fit for Barry Mackay, in all honesty. He was never going to break through a Rangers. I think Hearts, with the way they play, is the right fit for Barry Mackay, and he's shown it with performances week upon week. He was brilliant in that 2-1 win against Ross County a fortnight ago. He's shown like he's doing very, very well today, get that second goal today. And I must say, today is a very routine win for Hearts if they hold on, because they've scored early in both halves, which tells you everything you need to know. But on to West Lothian, obviously beat Hibs with 2-1. Joel Newbley made an incredible start. I've made the point to people today. Joel Newbley was renowned, especially at Broth, for his headed goals or using his height to his advantage. But against the Rangers and against Hibs yesterday, he showed that he could use his feet as well. And he's shown that irrespective of height, irrespective of ability, he's shown that he can get into really good areas and score goals. So he's a big, big player for Livingston, and he's that influential now that Bruce Anderson isn't getting a game. And Bruce Anderson was probably one of the first names in that team sheet last season, primarily because Livingston needed an out-and-out striker. Now it's John Newblade that's probably the first name in the forward areas on that team sheet for Livingston. So John Newblade offers so much. And as you rightly alluded to, Hibs pulled level through Kenny. I thought it was a little bit poor from a Livingston point of view to concede that goal, because it's obviously rebounded into the path of Kenny, and Kenny had the job of just heading it into the back of the net. And you didn't wonder if it was going to be a draw, but obviously Livingston have a never say die attitude, and Obolai, I thought, netted a very, very good winner to make it 2-1 to Livingston. And obviously clear the game off the contest for Martindale's side. And Martindale, I thought after the game, was very respectful towards Lee Johnson, because he did think that Hibs would come back with a vengeance, which I found very respectful actually from Martindale. He didn't exactly focus on his own side's 2-1 win. He was obviously happy about getting the result, but he wanted to balance it out by focusing on obviously Lee Johnson and the job he's doing at Easter Road as well, which I found very, very good indeed. But in terms of this one, Livingston making the home form count again. It's never a really good win over Hibs. Yeah, it shows under Martindale that they're keen to stick right to the very end, and that 3 points can be pivotal come the end of the season.
In terms of Joel Newbley, you're right. For me, I think he would walk into pretty much every other team in the Premier League. But that first goal from Newbley, yes, it's very good. It's very good play from Newbley, but the defending from Hibs is absolutely shocking. Paul Hanlon seems to pull his foot away. It's a great finish, but if you're Lee Johnston, you have got to be furious at the defending for that goal.
It's actually funny you mention that, Graham, and I'll tell you why I find it funny. When I came off this show on Friday night at 5 to 6, I went on the State of Scottish Football show to speak to Craig Leach and Greg Playfair. And we were making that exact same point about how Joel Newbley, about how interesting it was going to be about Joel Newbley coming up against Hamlin and Porteous, respectively. I mean, Porteous an aggressive player. He's got an aggressive component into his game. He's not a modern day defender by any stretch of imagination. Something that doesn't work in today's modern game, unfortunately, from his point of view. You've got Hamlin, experienced. From Hamlin's persuasion, I've been more concerned about Hamlin more than Porteous. Porteous, it's obviously poor from him. But when you look at Ryan Porteous overall, he's not the defender everybody hypes him up to be. And for me, that's where Hibs go wrong in certain stages for a good few years now, if you look at it. And Newbley does what he does. John Stewart got exactly the same treatment a fortnight ago, where he's getting a high press, he's getting pushed off the ball. John Stewart didn't have a clue what to do. And I see it in the flesh at Arbroath last season, where championship defenders don't have a clue how to deal with Newbley. Now, there's a very good point that somebody raised to me recently. I both would have won the league had Newbury still been involved. And I can't disagree. I can't disagree whatsoever. He's such a pivotal player. And Livingston are very, very lucky to have a player like John Newbury at their football club right now.
Are you surprised that Newbury's managed to make the step from the Championship to the Premier League with such ease by the looks of it?
Not really. It took him a bit of time, obviously, when he came back from abroad to obviously be on the bench, but I think it was more because of match sharpness more than anything else. I think he needed a little bit of time to bed in again. Plus, Bruce Anderson was doing very, very well in the forward areas for obviously the last season, especially in the last stages. But Newbury, I'm not surprised in the slightest. He's obviously won up the Championship last season for abroad. When he went to the Premier League, it was about showing his quality again. And the way I made this point to Carl Watt, the state of Scottish football, recently. It's the way Livingston play that helps Joel Newbury massively, because Livingston are good in terms of finding feet, finding creativity, getting at the good areas. Scott Pittman, I think, is a good nucleus for Joel Newbury to go and do what he does. So yeah, I'm not surprised in the slightest that Joel Newbury's doing what he's doing. I just want to get your thoughts. I'll correspond this in a different direction, Graham. I want your thoughts on the Montano challenge on Martin Boyle. Now, Ryan Porteous was his typical Ryan Porteous of obviously boring with opposition players. Martin Boyle didn't find the challenge pretty healthy either. He was obviously wanted to retaliate as well. What did you think of it? I didn't think it was dirty or malicious by any stretch of imagination from Montano.
No, I mean, I think it was. I would say it was rash, but I don't think it was the red card, and I don't think it warranted the kind of. Listen, that's what Ryan Porteous is like. He's that kind of character, and I don't think it was as rash as a lot of folk have made out. It's one of these things that happens in a game. Martin Boyle is very reactionary, but I don't think it was as bad as a lot of folk made out, to be honest.
I think it was perceived to be as bad as what it was because of the action of both Boyle and Porteous, who are renowned for doing those type of things.
I have made this point numerous times, and I will stick by this point, and people on here can challenge me on it. I honestly think Ryan Porteous is vastly overrated. Even yesterday, there were times where Newbury just went past him with so much ease. I think Porteous he wears his heart on his sleeve, but for me, I think he is vastly overrated. I haven't seen anything in him that I really particularly rate. I don't think he's a particularly great defender. And I think his reactions at times as well are very, very poor.
I'll tell you what, if Porteous was to move to a championship in England, I think it would get over the piece a very positive reaction.
I'm honest. I'm just not convinced by him. Listen, maybe you'll prove me wrong. I don't know. It's my opinion. I just don't think he's a very good player. But he might get better. You never know. Certainly, whenever I see him touted for a Scotland cap, I'm like, no, he's nowhere near a Scotland cap. But I think in terms of the game yesterday, I actually thought first half Livingston were very good. I thought they dominated the game. Hibs didn't really offer anything. But second half, Hibs were the better side. And I think you said earlier when Hibs got level, you thought Hibs might win the game. They didn't, obviously. And I think Hibs, for me, they were okay last week. I think they were okay in spells again yesterday. But I still think Lee Johnson's got a big battle in his hands there. And I think getting Martin Boyle fit is going to be huge.
I hope we're not putting this gentleman, if he is a gentleman, to sleep.
Only when Michael's on. Sorry, Michael. I mean, in terms of Hibs...
Good for Livingston.
Yeah, in terms of Hibs, I mean, as I say, it's only 3 games into the season. Lee Johnson's got a lot of new players in. How do you see them doing so far? How do you see them doing this season?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because they've got a very, very good result at St Johnstone, winning in the latter stages of that match. The Martin Boyle show last Sunday, and I'm saying Martin Boyle show because I don't think Hibs get a result otherwise.
No, they don't.
No. The Martin Boyle show earned him a credible point last Sunday, where Robbie Nielsen was under pressure to be sacked by a minority of fans supporters, but that's for another story for another day. But I think it's still a little bit frustrating and disappointed for Lee Johnson. As Martin touched upon, he's kind of looking at Johnson and thinking he'll be a success. He said, what's success for Hibs fans? I mean, success is an unravelling in motion for Hibs fans just now because they expect one thing one week, and when it doesn't go right, they deteriorate in a short space of time, Hibs, and you get that feeling that this might happen. And you, I think in the short term, I don't think things will change for the better because they've got Rangers, and it's going to be an interesting one to see where they're at when they play one of the big Glasgow sides.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the game last week and I thought Hibs had a lot of the ball, but didn't really do a lot with it. And then Mark Boyer comes on and he's got the penetration. I think I said before the start of the season, I think Hibs and Aberdeen will be a lot better this season. But I think where Hibs probably lack a little bit is that striking area. I think they're missing a natural finisher with Kevin Nisbet being out. Christian Doidge is okay. But I think if you're Lee Johnson and you're looking to maybe sign another player, I think you'd be looking at that striking area.
Oh, 100%. It's the ultimate piece of the jigsaw everybody in Scottish football is looking for. I mean, Hearts have got it with Shankland. Obviously, they've got it with Newboy. Aberdeen, although I didn't show yesterday, they've got it through Miovski. Celtic have got it through Kyogo predominantly. There's a lot of sides that are showing the quality in that part. I was a big believer, Graham, that last season the sides that finished in top six, the majority of the teams finished where they were because they had strikers that would score 10 to 15 goals minimum for their clubs, which seen them over the line. I mean, Dundee Utd didn't have a striker that scored goals, but they had enough quality through Carl Butcher or Dylan Levitt or Niskanen and Pollitt in particular, and the way Talcott's played in order for them to see themselves over the line. And for me, the striker is the ultimate part behind how a season could comprehend for your club. If you have a successful season, 9 times out of 10, that's because you've got a good striker at your disposal. I found this with Aberdeen last season. With me, I think Aberdeen would have made top six had Ramirez not went into isolation under Jim Goodwin. The minute he went to isolation, Aberdeen were fickled. And you get that feeling that a striker is the most important aspect of your team. Obviously, the midfield and defence have their own components and own influence on the game. But the strikers, they're there to go and score a minimum of 10, 15, 20 goals a season. If they don't do that, bang goes your ambitions.
I want to come back to Livingston in a second, but you're touching on strikers there, and I want to ask you this question because it's a question that I've been asked before. On touching on Hearts, Lawrence Shankland has now scored 2 goals in his first 3 games, but yet there's still a lot of folk who say Lawrence Shankland's a championship striker. Would you agree with that? Because I certainly don't.
He's unproven. I'll make that point to you. He's unproven. I'll tell you why he's unproven because he didn't do well. He done the Mickey Mellon. That was a season where it seemed to be that things deteriorated big time, attitude-wise between both parties, what Shankland and Mellon. Said it didn't work out in Belgium. Now, it depends how you define championship striker. Do you define championship striker in terms of being very successful, in terms of scoring 25 goals or whatever Shankland scored in Dundee prior to COVID? Or do you look at the championship striker as somebody that's just scoring full time, such as, I forgot his name, guy from Morton, Guy Easdale. His old man owns the club. I forgot his first name, but
is it no Sandy or something? Sandy Easdale.
That's the one. That's the one. So yeah, there's that point of view as well. But when you look at how Shankland's getting on, he's scoring against Hibs, he's scoring against Dundee Utd. Not that Hearts are similar to them, but Hearts are not a step above either, but they have the same pedigree as both of those sides that I mentioned.
Sorry, Dave. I'm just going to cut in there. Hearts have just made it 3-0. George Grant after 62 minutes, so it's now Hearts 3, Dundee United 0.
As long as it ain't 7 up. As long as it ain't 7 up.
I mean, let's be honest. We thought United.
Sorry, can I cut you there? Sorry. There was an advert. There was an advert in the Cali bar in Perth. I think it was free Cara 7 up for every Dundee United fan that entered into the pub.
I mean, Dave, 3-0 up after 62 minutes. How damaging is this for United after what happened on Thursday night?
Oh, massively. And I mean, when you look at Dundee United, things aren't going to improve either. I mean, when you look at this from a Dundee United point of view, they've got a massive game on Saturday now against St Mirren. They play St Mirren at Tannadice Saturday. That's a massive game for Dundee Utd now. Especially if Dundee Utd don't turn it around to go and score 4 goals now. It's not that things have taken a turn for the worst. It's just like Jack Ross hasn't had time to go and bed his own ideas, as Dundee Utd said. But then Jack Ross is going to be defined on these last 2 results, I think, now. I mean, Hearts, you beat the Hearts in the scoreline there isn't an embarrassment as such compared to Thursday. But Jack Ross will be defined on Thursday in particular, where he's getting judged on that showing. And if he doesn't look at that, people are going to look at Town Courts and say what a success Town Courts was for Dundee United Football Club, despite half of the United support berating Town Courts during that year in charge of Tardis. You can't win with Dundee United fans, and it's going to be an interesting one moving forward.
They've now lost 10 goals in the last 2 games. Is that going to be a major concern for Jack Ross?
I think so, and I made the point. No, I made the point at the State of Scottish Football. That's what it was. I made the point at the State of Scottish Football on Friday. There was a tweet from Eric Nicholson at the Courier who thinks Dundee should splash the cash for Xander Clark. I get what Eric is saying, but I think it'd be a panic buy from Dundee, in all honesty. But Greety, we were all singing his praises last Thursday. By the time we get to Friday morning and had our breakfast, Greety, you're this, you're that, you're that.
Yeah, I mean, there's still about 20 minutes to go. Hearts 3-0 up. I just want to go back to Livingston just now. David Martindale, very, very good coach. And I've said this before, and I think I said this last Friday. I think Livingston are very, very underrated. I think they're a very decent side, and that result yesterday does not surprise me. How far do you think Livingston can go this season? Do you think top 6 side, or do you think maybe a little bit lower than that?
I've predicted top 6. I just think they had a mediocre Premier Sports Cup campaign. They had a campaign where they struggled against Cove and Kilty and Carly, but they got a lot of reward out of that, I think, because they played some good sides in there, and that was despite a depleted pre-season programme as far as Livingston were concerned. I think you're beginning to see the benefits of how well they've worked in pre-season and what they've tried to achieve from pre-season. And Martindale's used Joel Newbley brilliantly. Obviously, Bruce Anderson's on a 3-year deal, and I think Bruce Anderson will be the first player to be chopping on Davy Martindale's door. But at the same token as well, when you've got a striker banging in goals, when you've got a striker making the same influence as John Newbley is, it's hard to keep him out. Also, Davy Martindale's been renowned for having a good nucleus of a team. Fitzwater's a very, very good defender. The boy Jamal George, good goalkeeper. He's always quite good, Martindale, despite the resources of Livingston in signing quality shoots signings. And this season's been no different. And I can understand why Livingston are getting fairly decent results against Dundee United and Hibs and pushing Rangers on the way. Let's not forget here, Rangers turned the game within that, basically. They turned the game in 110 seconds and won the game 2-1. Rangers will look at that game Livingston Day. That was pivotal. And that, for me, shows where Livingston are at right now.
We'll go to St Mirren against Ross County in a wee second, but just touching on the Hearts' third goal. You talk about Mark Birighitti, and it's actually a poor goalkeeper mistake. Michael Smith has a shot. It's Michael Smith's shot is beaten out by the goalkeeper right into the path of George Grant, who rolls in for 3-0. So again, it is poor goalkeeping, unfortunately, for United.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Well, when you look at it now, it's funny because if they signed somebody that was Xander Clark, there would be that panic thinking thought into it. But in the same thought process as well, he would be a much better cross position and a much better, he'd offer a much more solidarity to that Dundee United backline than Birighitti is right now.
I mean, if you're Mark Birighitti, how tough is this going to be? You've just lost 10 goals in the last 2 games. You're at fault for maybe a couple of the goals you've conceded. How difficult is that going to be for him now to bounce back from that?
Yeah, because by all accounts, it fell at the feet of George Grant, did it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you don't push or when you only have that rebound to follow to grant for Hearts respectively, it's never a good look for a goalkeeper. It'll be interesting to see what Dundee do moving forward because they've got Carl Johan Eriksson on the bench. A man's not played any games, but by all accounts, he's fell out of favour. By all accounts, he's had a poor pre-season. For me, football can change instantly. Now, I understand training and games is two different things because by all accounts, Carl Johan Eriksson is getting judged on training. But give him a chance in a game. See what he's like. Give him a game against a St Mirren where there is a risk attached to it because undoubtedly now it will be a massive game to Dundee Utd. But give Carl Johan Eriksson a chance. Brigitti's confidence will have dampened after Thursday and definitely after this one now. And for Brigitti, there's a lot of improvements to strive for moving forward now. And yeah, it's not a good look at all for Brigitti. But I'll be interested to see what Dundee do from a more financial perspective with regards to this because Brigitti is obviously a player that's came from Australia. There's a lot of red tape that comes from Australia with Brexit and various other things. It's going to be an interesting route to see and process to see what Dundee go do now.
In the SWPL game that kicked off at 4 o'clock, it is Aberdeen women 0, Rangers 1 after 25 minutes so far. So 1-0 to Rangers women over there. The last game of the weekend was St Mirren against Ross County. A fantastic win for St Mirren. An absolutely brilliant goal from Richard Tate. Didn't see that coming. I mean, if you're Stephen Robinson, that's got to be a big confidence boost for that one.
Yeah, I must say, our pals do the commentary in that Aberdeen women's game.
I'm not entirely sure who's doing the commentary for that.
Amy Canavan.
Who is it?
Amy Canavan.
Oh, is it Amy, is it?
Aye. Anyway, no, fantastic win for St Mirren beating Ross County by 1-0. As I touched upon earlier on to you, my opinion of Ross County is massively changed after that result because you're looking for Ross County to go and make an impact and create their own authority in the game, despite the fact that obviously maybe things haven't gone well from their own point of view, i.e. Ross County so far this season. But massive win for St Mirren. I mean, when you look at St Mirren, they've came up close against Murrow. Last week was a little bit disappointing, but let's face it, there's a lot of differences between Aberdeen and St Mirren. It's maybe the Declan Gallagher effect, if I'm going to be honest with you, Graham. But no, very, very, very good 3 points. 3 points that was due, 3 points that was welcoming for Stephen Robinson, and it's going to be interesting to see how they kick on there.
There has been a fourth goal at Tynecastle, but it is not for Hearts. It is Hearts 3, Dundee United 1. Stephen Fletcher after 70 minutes. 2 minutes to go. United get the next goal. You never know what could happen here.
the tabloids have got their headline written up already. Hearts embarrassment.
Honestly, if Hearts blow this, I'll be furious. I'll be rage quitting this show. But no, a fantastic result for St Mirren, and what a finish by Richard Tate as well.
Yeah, fantastic. It was the goal of the weekend for me. I was putting the point in the group chat this morning. I was like, what a fantastic strike by Richard Tate. Got some free space and just lit the top bag with his fantastic striker. I think St Mirren have been striving for something like that from Richard Tate for a good while now. He's an experienced figure in that St Mirren backline, and maybe he doesn't do it enough. And for me, I understand St Mirren have paid Declan Gallagher a reasonable enough wage for their own stature as a football club, and also for the fact that Declan Gallagher has been at the clubs he's been at, and obviously Aberdeen was a very, very intriguing wage from his own point of view. But probably Stephen Robinson, I think it's a test for his man management structure now. I wouldn't put Declan Gallagher straight back into the lineup next weekend now. I would go with it, tried and tested, see if it works.
I'm just looking at the stats for this Hearts game. Hearts have had 53% possession, 11 shots to United 7. Hearts have had 10 shots on target, United have had 2, and they scored one of them. That's mental. But now, in terms of St Mirren, that was a huge, huge win. A lot of St Mirren fans are still not convinced by Stephen Robinson, but that'll be a massive lift for him. And, I think Ross County, on the other hand, I watched them against Hearts first game of the season. I thought they were brilliant. They didn't win. I watched them against Celtic last week. Celtic dominated the game, but Ross County had spells. They didn't win. And then yesterday they've lost again. It's a very poor start for Malky Mackay. No points out of 3 games. Will that be a concern for him?
I think it will be, because I was making a point to people about Ross County. I watched them up at Bucky at the Premier Sports Cup, and yeah, they weren't great that day either. But I kind of took the approach and the mentality that it was only the first game of the season and things would take a turn for the better because Ross County had signed the number of players they had, 9 or 10 in total. So I took that into consideration, says just give Ross County a bit of patience. Now, let's not forget here, Ross County had a torrential start to last season as well. But you get the feeling that this is going to be a completely different approach now. Lost Charles Cook, and I think Charles Cook will have the Ali McCann effect to a degree. I think it will have the effect that Ross County will have a lot of credibility in the bank, but they've lost a good player in Hungbo and Charles Cook, and it'll take a massive spine out of your team. And I think that's going to be a stumbling block for Ross County unless they've signed a player that's almost at the level of Charles Cook as far as I'm concerned. So for Ross County, it is a worry. I wouldn't have been worried about defeats against Hearts and Celtic because they're sides, with all due respect, that are of a step up to Ross County degree. And I don't mean that any disrespect to the Staggies. Yesterday they were playing a side that they were expected to go and win, and most notably challenge against, and they did neither.
Yeah, I think St Mirren go to United next week. Now, assuming United don't win today, is that a game that St Mirren can build on this victory from yesterday now?
100%. But as I made the point to you, I think, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think Declan Gallagher should come straight back in. I think this is a massive test of Stephen Robinson's management credentials now. I think Declan Gallagher has to show in training that he's hungry and worth a place in the starting lineup again. Or else it wouldn't show good loyalty to the current crop of players if you were just picking players that you would put them for one game and then you get mistreated to an extent. So I hope Robinson treats it from that point of view, like management skills, at the same token as well. Yeah, it's a terrific opportunity and a terrific springboard for St Mirren now. Obviously, they don't have as much quality as what St Mirren used to have, but that'll do their confidence the world of good. And St Mirren's probably going to be a fortress for Robinson this season, and it's actually going to be a funny one in conspiracy theories because it would be funny to predict that Robinson's actually won a Premiership game. But Robinson's proved this all wrong.
Obviously, I can't see this, but United's goal was a penalty to Stephen Fletcher. And I've just had a message from a friend to say it was never a penalty. Obviously, I can't see this, but it's apparently Mark Behich was felled by Gary Mackay-Stephen for the penalty. Obviously, I don't know. I'll need to see it later, but I've been told that it wasn't a penalty, so I'll need to see that later. For Ross County, it's a really disappointing result. I think they had the second half had a few chances. Again, I think Edwards looks a very, very good player, but they really lack a cutting edge up front.
I would say so, yeah. When you look at that, is that Ross County? Sorry, did you just say?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you look at Ross County, yeah, they probably do. Gordon White has a good aerial presence about him, but they don't have the same quality in the final third as they did last season, and that's going to be a worry for Malky Mackay, in all honesty. So there's a lot. I think it's back to the drawing board as far as Malky Mackay is concerned, and I think he's got a lot of adjustments to make in a short space of time. And I'll be interested to see the route that Ross County go from here. Obviously, the Dominic Samuel is knocking at the door. There must be something to suggest that he doesn't get a game on a continuous basis, because I thought Dominic Samuel led the line really well with his team against Bucky, but there must be a training issue, or there must be a work ethic issue behind him not playing, because for me, if he was a hard worker at training, I think he'd be starting every game. So it's interesting times in the forward areas for Rangers, in all honesty. For us, County, beg your pardon, in all honesty.
In terms of St Mirren, what do you think they'll do this season? Do you think they'll be okay away from relegation, or do you think they could struggle?
I still think they'll struggle. I think yesterday is a big win for St Mirren. Just an aspect of how the game was approached, and obviously that fantastic side by Richard Tate. I still think St Mirren are in trouble, and I think the next 4 or 5 weeks will give us a good idea into how St Mirren are going to be. So, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Something I'll keep an eye on, of course. But yeah, it's hard to gauge. It's a good 1-0 win, but that's just the start of it. I think the weak link as a Declan Gallagher has been proven yesterday, and it'll be interesting to see if Declan Gallagher comes straight in, or indeed if there's any adjustments defensively. But for me, I wouldn't change it. What's the problem in changing it when you're doing so well?
In terms of Malky Mackay, do you think they'll be okay this season, or again, do you think they'll struggle, especially if they don't manage to sign? I would imagine with a few weeks left, they will try and sign a striker, but do you think they could struggle this season?
Well, as I touched upon it, Ross County, my opinion is changed totally Ross County now. I didn't think they were going to be nowhere near the relegation battle. And I actually had a good argument with somebody about this, saying that I don't think Ross County were nowhere near it. I just hope I don't end up with pie in my face now regarding that. But when you look at County, when you look at County, the lacking quality, the lacking tenacity in the forward areas, and they just need to push the reset button, I think.
In the SWPL, it's now Aberdeen 0, Rangers 2. So disappointing start for Aberdeen, 2 down already. So let's look now at the European games this week. I think we've covered all the games from the weekend. So it's still, after 78 minutes, it's still Hearts 3, Dundee United 1. Let's look at European games. So Tuesday night, Rangers against Eindhoven. Rangers go at this with a lot of confidence on the back of a 4-0 victory. I think this will be a harder game than what Union SG was. How do you see this game going, Dave?
I agree with you. I think it will be a harder game, and Rangers will have to be on the front foot from the word go, primarily because the first leg's at Ibrox. I mean, it's going to be an interesting one on Tuesday night, I think, because Rangers have been usually in the second leg at home at Ibrox, and they know what the balance has been like, they know what they need to do, they know what the permutations has been like from their own point of view. But now it's totally different. It's important that they go and get a win, I think, on Tuesday. Go and get a 2-0 win, and then it's up to PSV to level on the pressure, see where they're at. If it's a 0-0, it'll be like a cup final in Holland next week. So it's an interesting one from that point of view, and it creates a totally different psychological view to things, I think, as far as I'm concerned. As for PSV, as I touched upon, it is an Alkmaar finals show. Yeah, Eredivisie is a very competitive league. It maybe doesn't get the credit it usually does. I think that's more because of the quality of teams in the league. But I'd also, with all due respect here, say it's far more superior than Scottish football as well, which tells you where we're at just now. But Rangers, it's a big one, and it's going to be interesting to say the least. And on that Aberdeen Rangers women's game, John Blaisdell has texted in my group chat with and said, "Game's done. Dons haven't played bad, but Rangers have found a way to ease their way into the game and obviously get 2 goals up." But back at the Rangers men, not Rangers, I'll go Rangers men, now, just so I don't contradict myself here, but Rangers, I think they need to take the game to PSV Eindhoven immediately on Tuesday, try and get a few early goals, or try and create a statement at least, and then obviously in the second leg, create your own game plan and try and get that lucrative possibility of Champions League football group stage until the World Cup, which would be two Scottish sides in Champions League, would be tremendous for Scottish football, especially after all the criticism that's came our way in the last week with the Dundee Utd result.
Do you think it's important that Rangers do take a lead over to Holland?
I'm 100%. I think it's massive. If they can go and get a 2-goal lead or a 1-goal lead, or even a 2-1, there's no away goals in Europe anymore. I think it'd be good. I think it'd be a good foundation and something good for Rangers to build upon for the return leg at Eindhoven next Wednesday. So I think a lead is vital. And Rangers have been known, especially in the last year or so, for putting incredible performances at Ibrox, and I'll make the point again. Ibrox is going to be a tough man on Tuesday. Sorry, the fans are loud and clear. The atmosphere will crawl onto the pitch, and be up to the players after that to get the job done.
In terms of the team that Rangers play, Do you think Van Bronckhorst would put Morelos back in, or will he stick with what's worked for him so far?
I think he's got to work with what's best for him so far. But what I would say in addition to that is, I think it would be a good tactic from Van Bronckhorst's point of view if he was to put on Morelos with 15-20 minutes to go, where it gets a bit stretched, where PSV are tired, not lethargic, but tired, and Morelos will have all the energy in the world where he can get to good areas, and then they've got every possible opportunity of exploiting PSV every opportunity. So for me, I think Morelos has a big role to play. But for me, I would start with the bench. I'd go with a try to test the approach and then see how you get on from there. But what I would like to see as well is I'd like to see Van Bronckhorst go for a better defensive approach. But there's no role in the roost here. He got horribly wrong in the first leg in GSG. He's rectified it, which was a major bonus. Now it's about building on that. They've had a good week, Rangers, and it's about building on that and trying to get a good result on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing that away goals is now no longer in play?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing in this aspect because if Rangers are at home in the first leg, it's obviously helping in terms of trying to get that lead, try to consolidate themselves and try to build that on the second leg. And then the second leg, I think, will be a bigger cup final, have a bigger cup final component to it than the first leg will. The first leg will be about trying to see who comes out the top in that and see how the game's going to fare up. And then the second leg will have a cup final feel to it because no side will want to be in the Europa League. Rangers certainly won't want to be in the Europa League. It was a tremendous achievement reaching the Europa League final last time, but Rangers certainly won't want to be in the Europa League again this time around. They'll want to be in the Holy Grail, which is essentially the Champions League. And if they can do that, as I said, it'll be fantastic for Scottish football.
Do you think they will? Do you think they'll get through against PSV over 2 legs?
Well, I'm going to be positive and confident about Scottish football by saying yes, I think they'll win the first leg 1-0, and I think they'll have enough in the second leg to see it out.
I'm going to go 2-1 Rangers first leg, and I'm going to go. I think it'll be maybe 1-0 second leg away from home for Rangers. I think they will get through. It'll be a difficult game, but I think they will get through. In terms of Hearts on Thursday, Hearts are back in Europe after the disappointment of Barcacara in 2014. We are now back in Europe. We play FC Zurich on Thursday away from home. I'm looking forward to seeing European football back at Tynecastle again. Second leg in a couple of weeks' time. How important do you think it is for Hearts that we've got European football back again?
Yeah, apologies for being my phone, but I'm just saying FC Zurich are due with winter for today. I'll see if I can get a league table of the Swiss league, actually.
I think they're bottom, after only 4 games, I think.
Aye, well, they're due with winter for today, 1-1, which was an interesting one. And it wasn't easy to see for them against Linfield on Thursday ever for Zurich. So I think for Hearts, it's a massive game. I don't know how the game's evolving right now in terms of Tynecastle, but if I was Robbie Nielsen, I'd be changing things up, getting players rested up and getting players immediately in ice bath for that game in Zurich on Thursday evening. Now, of course, it's not in Zurich, it's where game?
Sorry?
The game's where? It's not in Zurich, is it?
It's in St. Gallen.
St. Gallen, right, okay. So that'll be interesting within itself to see where we're at in regards to that. I'll just wait to get the league table out for you, but Switzerland League competitions. Oh, there's not a Switzerland League table available in Flash Score. It must be a very underrated league, Graham. But there we go. In terms of Hearts, I think it's a terrific opportunity to get to European football. If they can get in the Europa League, I think it'd be absolutely fantastic for Hearts because you'll play a good calibre of opposition on a weekly basis, which would be a money spinner for Hearts, but also attract lots of exposure to that football club as well, which would be a major positive as far as Hearts are concerned. But then also, in the same token as well, the Conference League has lesser quality, but also you look at it by saying that Hearts will look to take their own authority on things and they're looking to go and make it a good account of themselves. And when you see results such as drawing the winter for a team that I never knew about until 2 minutes ago, then it stands Hearts in good stead for Thursday, knowing that they've got a good chance.
Yeah, there's 4 minutes to go at Tynecastle. It's still Hearts 3, Dundee United 1. I'm
Have
surprised
they made any
that,
subs?
yeah, they have made a few, but I'm surprised that Lawrence Shanklin's still on. I thought he might have got rested, but he's still on the pitch. They have made a few changes. Gary Mackay-Stevens on, Andy Hallory's on. Cammy Devlin's been taken off. He got an injury there, but he has made a few changes. But I'm surprised that Lawrence Shanklin's still on the pitch. I'd have taken him off.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Lawrence Shanklin's a big player, especially for the style of football that Hearts are playing. He'll be a big player for Hearts on Thursday night. I'm surprised the more senior figures, as you allude to, such as Shanklin, hasn't been brought off yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the game. I'm going out to watch it on Thursday, and I think Hearts have got a decent chance. I would love to get the Europa League. I think you mentioned it already. I think it would be a great league to get into. But we know that if we get beat, we've got the drop down in the Conference League. But I prefer the Europa League. But I think Hearts have got to fancy this. And this result today so far, the way it is, will be a huge boost going into that game on Thursday.
100%, because I mean they've beaten a good opposition in Dundee Utd. Yeah, Dundee Utd. It's okay. I was just having a text regarding Aberdeen Women. Yeah, in terms of Hearts. I'll remove these Aberdeen texts that I'm getting. I'm getting them constantly just now for some reason. In terms of Hearts, Dundee Utd are in a predicament right now after that result in Alkmaar Thursday night. But if you're Robbie Nielsen, you've got to beat what's in front of you. That's how football works. You've got to beat who's in front of you. And it's a very, very good win for Hearts this afternoon, the hold on against Dundee United. And that'll do their confidence the world they're good. And Hearts, they've started the season very, very well. Yeah, last Sunday, petered over a little bit. It did. It was sour to take. Probably because of the manner in which the equaliser came for Hibs' point of view. But Hearts have started this season very, very well. 2 wins now, a draw can't be shrugged off, and they've started this season very well. If Hearts can get through the Europa League, what a tremendous start to the season Hearts have had, as far as I'm concerned.
But we're under the concern here with 2 minutes to go. Craig Halkett is down, holding his ankle. He kind of fell awkwardly.
Well, there you go. It's over and done with, Graham. It's over and done with.
It was a challenge by Tony Watt, and he's landed awkwardly. He's down. He's walking off, but not very comfortable. I don't know if he'll come back on or not, but he is walking off at least, so that's a good sign. I wanted to ask you about Hearts, that's Robert Nielsen, because I've said this before. I said this last week. The amount of abuse that I saw Nielsen got after that game last week that we didn't win, which for me was not on Robert Nielsen at all. The defence should have done better. But, I mean, I just don't understand why some Hearts fans still don't rate Robert Nielsen. He's done a great job so far. But as I said last week, he has only ever one defeat or one loss or one poor result away from a sack, which I think is just absolutely mental.
Well, I'm going to be really honest with you, Graham. If Hearts can beat Zurich, you'll see the Robert Nielsen protesters coming out.
Oh, yeah, you will, 100%.
And that's it's a sad state of affairs, that. Not that I'm trying to criticise or shrug off every Hearts fan in the universe, but Robbie Nielsen's done a good enough job. The Broder result was a massive black mark, but we're not here to speak about Broder Rangers. We're here to speak about a European Tigers FC Zurich, which shows how far and how Hearts have grown in a short space of time. And this is a big occasion coming over the next 2,000 for Hearts. It's great that the game's live on BBC. I know on this show we have our big critics, Michael McCure and Megan Stevenson, that are big critics of the way the broadcast game works in this country. But I think it's tremendous from the BBC that we're seeing one in particular, Hearts game being shown live on the BBC this Thursday. So it obviously gives Hearts fans and any supporters of Scottish football an opportunity to see Hearts in action in one of the biggest games in a very, very long time.
I'll tell you what, 5 minutes have been added on, and I'll tell you what, United should be 3-2. It's a fantastic header. I don't know who it is that's heads it, but it's a great save for Craig Gordon. Stephen Fritz at the back post just can't quite get his leg around it to get it in, but it should be 3-2. Very, very fortunate there for Hearts.
I think that just shows the Hearts probably thought it was going to be comfortable. Not that Dundee United are a comfortable side to play against, because they're not. Hearts probably thought 3-1 up, 3-0 up, let's get Thursday, let's concentrate on Thursday, let's prioritise Thursday. That'll probably have been the mindset, because it's easy to get carried away. It's easy to let the heads drop after such a situation, knowing you've got a big game coming up. So I can understand why Dundee United are getting back into the game a little bit to an extent. But in terms of Hearts, they can see the job through. It's a professional performance. That's all that counts. And the attention will immediately turn to Thursday after Robbie Dawson does the press, I'm presuming.
Do you see Hearts progressing over those 2 legs?
I think, again, Graham, I'm going to be positive about Scottish football and say I think so. I don't think, as you touched upon, FC Zurich are currently in the best position in their own domestic league. And that just goes to show you, because there is the outcry that domestic and European football is two completely different things. Also, at the same time as well, you look at the how things are going. It wasn't meat and gravy against Winfield, and meat and gravy. It's Sunday roast, by the way. You can tell it's a Sunday, and obviously 1-1 draw against Winterford, a team that nobody knew about. So I'm quietly confident about Hearts, but of course I'm live on the Walker Room Indie Live. So there you go, Independence Live, Hearts to go through.
I'm going to say I think we'll draw 1-1 the first leg, and I'm going to say I think Hearts will win the second leg 2-0 and progress to Europa League, which would be fantastic. There are just under 3 minutes to go at Tynecastle, still 3-1 to Hearts. Dave, I wanted to ask you, because you were at a game yesterday. I think you were at Forfar against Elgin. What like was that game?
Terrific for Scottish 2 football, that was, Graham. Two each. Very good game. Elgin took the lead through a audacious lob from Kane Hester. The game had a typical League 2 feel to it, where both teams were going for it, both teams were playing the front foot, both teams were aggressive, both teams had the typical Scottish Lower League feel to it, which I quite enjoyed. But Forfar levelled through Matthew Aitken, Brian Cameron handling the ball on the goal line. I'll need to see the Forfar highlights, but I didn't think it was a hard ball at the time. But it was probably because of where I was sitting in the stand more than anything else. Matthew Aitken converts the penalty with ease. Russell Dingwall guides Elgin 2-1 up again. Elgin get the penalty after Mark McCallum, the goalkeeper, collides with Jake Dolzanski. Russell Dingwall converts that penalty for Elgin. And then Forfar equalise through, no, not Downs. Ben Armour. How can I possibly nearly forgot that? I actually interviewed him for tomorrow's paper, which goes to show you. But Ben Armour had a good finish from Stephen McCloskey's cross. And the speller was 2 bookings. I'll need to see the footage back, but I did think it was a booking for the second yellow. But Angus Bell didn't have a lot of complaints, in all honesty. So maybe it was a booking in all seriousness. But when you look at this game, obviously there was a lot of talking points and 2 red cards, and I only had a 300-word piece to do for the Sunday Mail today. So it was a very telling time. You can sense in the 85th minute, wondering how I'm going to structure my report.
I mean, you watch a lot of these kind of lower league games. Are you impressed with the standard that you see?
I am, yeah. Like your Brofs and all that, they've obviously still been impressive. And I watched Dundee against the Brof on Friday night, Graham, and I was very impressed with both sides. I thought it was a terrific article for for Championship football. Is that better? It's okay. We're 8 minutes to left anyway. Dundee.
I can tell you. Sorry, Dave. I just got across you with a minute to go. With a minute to go, Hearts have just added a 4th goal, and it's Josh Ginnelly. So it's now Hearts 4, Dundee United 1 going at the 95th minute.
Yeah, in terms of obviously the quality, I thought it was a very good game between Dundee and the Brof on Friday night. Brof made a very, very good goal of it. I don't think the Brof were at their best, in all honesty. I thought the Brof were compact. I thought they were organised. I thought they were the traditional way of Dick Campbell philosophy. But I thought for Dundee, I thought Josh Mulgrew had a superb game. Luke McCow was really, really good. And Paul McMillan, still had a good game, but I don't think he had the same influence. And I was making that point to a Dundee fan I know on social media. I don't think Paul McMillan will have the same influence for Dundee this season, because McCowan's came on at a game, and Cammy Kerr got criticism from a Dundee fan that I know. But Cammy Kerr is doing what Boyer's instructed to do. Gary Boyer likes this players playing ball playing. He's not like his players doing punt. He's like ball playing. He likes playing it from back. And I think that needs to be acknowledged and applauded upon. And I think with that, you're going to find mistakes in the Dundee backline. A Broth, It's a sore one for Dick, but he'll bounce back. And they've got a big game of Queen's Park on Saturday night. Who got a terrific win against Partick Thistle yesterday, may I add.
It's all over at Tynecastle. Hearts running out by 4-1 winners against Dundee United to go third in the league. A massive, massive confidence boost for Hearts going into that game on Europe. But again, another disappointing result for United on the back of a thumping on Thursday.
It's a good one for Hearts, yeah. Winning 4-1 against Dundee United, a very impressive result indeed from Robbie Nelson's side. And, I think Robbie Nelson had the right mentality today. Obviously, I didn't watch the game, but he was saying in the press before the game that he had to be aware of a reaction from Dundee United. United, to an extent, got a reaction, but Hearts were still on the front foot. Hearts were still the better side and still had more streetwise approach about them, and obviously get the job done. It's a very, very good 3 points for Robbie Nelson's side. But it's an improvement, but still a disappointing one for Jack Ross's side. But it'll be a nice sweet one for Hearts, considering Jack Ross was Hibs beforehand. So a nice getting up you to Jack Ross for that from Hearts fans, I'm presuming.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit. But just go back to that Dundee Arbroath game. We also saw what Arbroath did last season. Do you think it's beyond them to do the same thing again and try and get promotion again?
I don't think they'll be the same team they were last season because they've lost Newbley and Jack Hamilton signed for Hartlepool, and I thought Jack Hamilton had a tremendous end to the season for Arbroath last year upon the whole scheme of things. But they've got Kieran Shanks, they've got Daniel Fozu, they've got Dale Hilson. Strikers within their own rights, but not strikers that score enough goals as far as I'm concerned. And you've seen that on Friday, Graham. I think Arbroath created a lot of opportunities, and Dale Hilson had a terrific opportunity for 2 each. And Dick made that point to Amy Canavan after the game through his interview, where he pinpointed that Dale Hilson chance, and had that gone in, I think Arbroath go on to win the game. So there's disappointment in that regard, but I still think Arbroath will be up there. I don't think relegation will be a fear for Arbroath. Dick Campbell will certainly not have that mentality when he speaks to the press analysts. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see how they get on.
Would Dundee be your probably tips for winning the league? I mean, at the moment they are. There's only 3 games played. They're top on 6 points. Inverness on 5 points. Ayr on 5 points. Partick on 4. Would they maybe be your tip for getting promoted again this season?
After seeing them on Friday, yeah, I predicted Partick Thistle to win the league this year when I did the predictions before the start of the season. But after seeing Dundee, I can see there's a lot of positivity. That was a big win in Dundee, not just on the park but off the park as well. They remembered a legend in Pat Liney. 62nd minute, the clock, and that was for Pat Liney. He was an absolute legend for that football club, and obviously got the result that Pat would have endeavoured before the game. So well done to everybody.
One team that maybe I'm not surprised at, but one team I might have thought would do better so far, and again I know it's early in the season, are Hamilton Accies. Do you think they've got enough to get promoted this season?
I wouldn't say promoted, but what I would say, I think it's going to be a good year for John Rankin. John Rankin was a coach at Hearts and is very, very well respected in the game, both in terms of coaching and in terms of media, because he's been on BBC Scotland in terms of doing Dundee stuff recently. And he comes across and he speaks a good game. And for Hamilton, they've had a really good start to the season, you alluded to. They'll get results under John Rankin, that's for sure. I think it's an upgrade on Stuart Taylor, in all honesty.
Yeah, 100%. I think a team that I might worry about maybe a little bit is Morton. I do like Morton. I think I used to like going to Capello in the kind of early 80s, late 80s. It was a great wee stadium. But I think they might struggle this season.
You get that feeling. Morton had a humongous effort to stay in the Championship last season, and that deserved a lot of credit. But Morton haven't recruited well. They've recruited players, but they've recruited players. They haven't recruited quality players, and it's beginning to tell. Morton had a good result against Hibs in pre-season, but the bread and butter is the league, and they haven't started very well, and things need to be rectified fast.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we are nearly at the end of time here. It's been a great show, as always, another busy one. I'm delighted because Hearts have won 4-1. We're going to Europe on Thursday, so I'm buzzing after that. It just remains for me to thank David Smith very much for joining me. We will be back next Friday. I hope Mike and McCool will be back, but you never know. And then we'll be back on the Sunday show as well. I think there might be games next Sunday. Well, there is a game next Sunday because Celtic play Hearts next Sunday. So we'll be back next Sunday at 3 till 5 again. But thank you very much to David Smith for joining me. It's been a really great show. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And until next time, we shall see you next week. Bye-bye.